issues, and now you have this standoff over the debt ceiling. It is not a sustainable position for the White House to say they're not going to negotiate with Republicans, is it?
Well, here's what's sustainable. The Republicans should do what I did under Donald Trump, and that's pay your bills. It's patriotic to pay your bills. Look, if you're a family, you have credit card debt.
Sounds like you're agreeing it's not a sustainable position.
Well, I think we should pay the bills and then negotiate. And we should negotiate on deficit reduction. The last person to leave a surplus was Bill Clinton. I'll tell you how we lower the debt. Let's repeal the Trump tax cuts. Let's repeal some of the Bush tax cuts for the very wealthy. Let's not have all these overseas wars. I mean, the Democrats have a plan, and let's raise taxes on the top wealthy. But before we get there, we pay our bills. If you're a family of a credit card debt, who says let's not pay the bill?
But the president was saying Kevin McCarthy passed something, or at least put out a plan, and I'll talk to you. Now he's passed something, and the president says he still will not engage with him. I understand the back and forth, but the political cost and the economic one is very real here, and it will stick to the president.
Well, the president's saying he's not going to be hostage in having veterans cuts on health care, in having cuts on K through 12 education, in having cuts on food stamps, in having cuts on manufacturing to just pay our bills. He's saying we can discuss that, we can negotiate, but first pay your bills. And I think Senator McConnell understands this, and I think the president will sit down with Senator McConnell. He knows that we can't default.
You think that's the back channel that's going to figure this out?
That's why I said, or Kevin McCarthy's got to come without 22% cuts on veterans benefits.
Well, we will see, and I do hope to have you on again when there's not a looming crisis, Congressman. Last week, two heavily Republican states, Nebraska and South Carolina, failed to pass near total abortion bans. South Carolina Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace joins us now, and it's good to have you here in person. You're often joining us remote.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
So I want to get to a lot of what we just talked about there with the debt ceiling, but let's start off on abortion. You've been talking about this being a very moral issue, but also a political one that will impact voters in 2024. Nikki Haley, the former ambassador, former governor of your state, said no Republican president will have the ability to ban abortion nationwide, and she believes there is a federal role on abortion, but she didn't say specifically what it is that she believes. No limits exactly, no exceptions. Does she need to?
Well, I think any presidential candidate, anyone running for office at the federal level, including members of Congress, incumbents, and people that are running to flip seats in 24, need to have a position, need to articulate that position. What I've been trying to do since Roe was overturned is show a roadmap. I represent a swing district in South Carolina, but show a roadmap for winning states that are very purple or districts that are purple, and articulating where we stand on the message. And we have to show, and I'm pro-life, but I'm a conservative who reaches across the aisle and works with the other side. I work with Ro Khanna. Great to see him this morning on your program. I work with Democrats all the time on issues where we can agree on. And there's so much when it comes to protecting life and protecting women that we can agree on in terms of gestational limits. That's something that can happen at the state and the federal level. And I talk to and listen to my constituents all the time. And I read a letter from a woman who's no longer Republican. She's an independent voter now. She's pro-choice. And her gestational limits are 14 weeks. Well, I'm a pro-life legislature. Mine are 15 to 20 weeks. We want to make sure there are exceptions. So there's so much, I think, in how we talk about the issue, but we have to, as Republicans, show compassion towards women and life. I mean, you can do both and win. I did it overwhelmingly in November when we won by 14 points, overwhelmingly in a swing district.
And just for clarity, the majority of abortions are performed in that window of 15 weeks.
Right.
So former President Trump has taken criticism from Republicans, though, for not specifying a position either, has just said it's up to the states. Both of South Carolina's senators have picked that window, 15 weeks, 20 weeks. Tim Scott's running for president potentially here. He said he'd sign a 20-week limit. Is he closer to what the Republicans need to be doing than Nikki Haley is?
Well, I think 15 to 20 weeks is the sweet spot here, because the Democrats often are at 24 weeks, and that's too far for a lot of people. No one wants zero. No one wants 0
But
weeks.
you want this to be clear at the federal level. You want a law, not kicking it back.
It can be. I mean, I think there's a role for the state government and for the federal government. If it's gestational limits, certainly we can find some agreement. That's why I say 15 to 20 weeks. That's something even pro-life groups like Susan B. Anthony's list, although they're against it now. 2 years ago, they were for 20 weeks with exceptions. They've just moved the goalposts. But for years, Republicans have been for 15 to 20-week bans with exceptions, including both my senators from South Carolina at the federal level. And I think most 80% of America would agree with that. But they want us to protect women and girls who are victims of rape, victims of incest, women whose lives are at risk. We also need to make sure that that birth control, that women have access to birth control, particularly in rural areas. In South Carolina, we have 14 counties in our state that don't have a single OBGYN doctor. And then what do we do with the babies who are born who are unwanted? What about our foster care system, adoption care, birth control? There's so many things that we can work on to show that we're pro-women. Rape kits. We have over 100,000 rape kits in this country that have yet to be processed. We can do both. We can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Well, you have said Republicans need to have women on the ticket.
Yep.
Nikki Haley endorsed you. Are you ready to endorse her?
Well, we're going to see how the race shapes up. Not everybody is in. I'm watching very carefully. I love Nikki Haley. I've not been quiet about that. She was the only person to endorse me in my election last year.